Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramokgopa has outlined plans to tackle South Africa's energy crisis. He briefed the ANC National Executive Committee on the matter earlier today at Boksburg on the East Rand. He clarified that load shedding cannot end in December, as previously communicated by his party Secretary General Fikile Mbalula. For more on this, we're joined now by energy expert Chris Yelland. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. We've just learned power outages will not end this year, despite the governing ANC promising that Eskom's load shedding will come to an end by December. How could this statement have been realistic to begin with?
It could never have been realistic to begin with. We've heard such a wide range of conflicting messaging coming from government, whether it's from Minister Mantashe, well, start off with from Ted Blom, who said he could sort this matter out in 3 to 6 months. We heard from Minister Ramokgopa, who said he could sort it out within. So we heard from Minister Mantashe, who said he could sort it out within 6 months to a year. We've heard, end of this year. We've heard 18 months from the Finance Minister, Minister Kgosientsho, at COP27. We've heard 2 years from the Eskom chairman. All these conflicting statements, which really don't inspire a lot of confidence, because there's not a lot of substance behind these predictions. And really, if you're going to make predictions, you do need to have some plans behind them that are credible. I think, to suggest that they could have, that this can end at the end of this year has never been credible.
As you and I speak this evening, the ANC NEC meeting is underway. The expectation is that those talks will find some resolutions around the Eskom crisis and perhaps pave a way forward for the country's energy trajectory, of course, following the appointment of the new electricity minister. What are the glaring issues and questions that perhaps need to be answered first at this level before we can see some sort of positive outcome?
I think we've got to keep our feet on the ground and have a very consistent and clear view of what are our non-negotiables. For example, is it non-negotiable that we are going to reduce our carbon footprint by a certain amount by 2030 and reach net carbon zero by 2050? Is that, something that we say is non-negotiable? But what we cannot do is put out mixed messaging and speak with a forked tongue. In other words, make international commitments upon which financial decisions get made, and then calmly do the opposite. If we do that kind of thing, we will cause serious damage to South Africa and its economy. Just for example, we have to take seriously the fact that our biggest trading partner in the world, that is the European Union, are going to introduce cross-border carbon adjustment tariffs. In other words, products and services and things like aluminium and manufactured products that have a high carbon content, that use a lot of fossil fuel-based electricity, will be penalized through tariffs. And this will have a devastating impact on South Africa's exports unless we meet our commitments and reduce our carbon footprint. So we've got to really understand the realities of the global world. And it's we can cry that it's not fair and all of these things, but it just doesn't help. We have to understand the reality of the global situation, and we have got to adapt, if we want to export, if we want to be part of the global world, we have to understand the environment in which the global world and the trading partners operate. And we have to really set policies that are well aligned. You cannot just change policies on the hoof, responding to every crisis that comes your way. One's got to develop a long-term set of consistent policies and stick to them over the long term. And that's what I see lacking at the moment. We seem to just make policies on the hoof, depending on whatever pressure we're facing at the moment.
So we're also learning that South Africa's power woes are likely to worsen, especially as we go into the colder winter months, causing an even more devastating blow on an already ailing economy. I mean, you touch on aspects of the impact on South Africa's economy. It's been said that we will certainly experience stage 8 load shedding. That's up to 12 hours of no electricity in a single day. That in itself will have a devastating blow on the ailing economy. It's been projected that we could see jobs being lost in the process. How severe is the likelihood, and when can we see it all start happening?
Yeah, so let's just look at the reality, for the balance of this year. Eskom's website every week presents an outlook for the next 52 weeks. And it is code red for virtually all of these weeks ahead. Now, what that means is that based on a certain assumption or planned outages for maintenance, and based on a certain assumption of unplanned outages, which is at a level of 15,000 megawatts, they expect load shedding for severe load shedding, for almost every week of the year going ahead. Now, the reality is that, in fact, the amount of unplanned breakdowns are not 15,000 megawatts, which is the assumption on which that is based, but are significantly higher. So for the last week, for example, unplanned outages have varied between 16,000 and 17,500 megawatts, and that's why we've had stage 6 load shedding. And it can easily go higher. And if you look at the energy availability factor, for the first 15 weeks of this year, it is really showing an alarming trend that is significantly, and I mean something like 7 percentage points lower than the energy availability factor for the same period last year. So the things are significantly worse this year, and I don't see an end to this, during this year. Maybe next year things will start improving, because this year there are 3 units out at Kusile Power Station. There's a unit out at Medupi Power Station on a long-term outage, and there's Koeberg Power Station, 900 megawatts, which is out, for this life extension. That is a very significant amount out, in addition to the normal random breakdowns that are occurring. So we have these long-term outages, in addition to, the normal run-of-the-mill trip outs, or unexpected trip outs of generators. So for this year, I think we're going to have a very hard year.
Yeah. You speak about the disadvantage of changing policies based on circumstances and what's happening around us as a country, saying that it's to our detriment. What do you think that the energy minister, the new electricity minister, should be looking at, should be prioritizing? What should that list look like?
You can have all different kind of plans, and ultimately there are weaknesses and strengths of all plans. But finally, you've got to choose a plan, and you've got to stick with it in the long term, and drive it through and make it happen. I think the president's plan in July last year was as good a plan as any. And it detailed certain short-term objectives, medium-term and longer-term objectives. And I would urge government to stick with that plan. Yes, it can be criticized. I've criticized it on occasion. That's beside the point. But stick with it and make it happen, because it is, it was a plan that resulted from significant consultation, perhaps too much consultation. Yes, one can criticize that the plan is too complex and looks at long-term issues and medium-term issues. Yes, some people would say we need to focus on quick wins, short-term issues. I think we've got to do all three simultaneous. We've got to start working on the quick wins to deliver something to the public quickly, but at the same time, we have to start on the medium and longer-term options, because if we don't start on the medium and long-term options now, we will not have them ready in 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years' time.
Yeah, very well. Thank you so much. Thanks for weighing in on the discussion. Energy expert Chris Yelland.